Welcome to another episode of the Impro podcast. My guest today is Iman Kamel. So you're a filmmaker and artist, and you have this connection to ancient Egypt. Tell us a bit about that.
I'm not only a filmmaker and an artist, I am also a cultural diplomat. I studied international affairs at the Fletcher School in the US. Then I practiced into homeopathy, and then I became a naturopath and hand-on healer. A few years ago, I was in Egypt in the Dandora Temple. I had something that I call initiation outside of the temple. It was by the lake, an empty lake. You can imagine it like a conference, but celestial. So there was a conference with many of the pantheons. We call them Neteru, the ancient Egyptian archetypes that are very modern in our time. And they were talking about this pandemic and everything that will come in. And I had no idea, I didn't understand what they are going. But what I got about it is that I have a new operation and a new mission in this world.
We're going to play you a piece of music, and it's completely improvised. I want you to tell me what it makes you think of. So that's anything that comes into your mind, any kind of thoughts, ideas, emotions.
I was transported instantly to the waters and the dolphins. There was a lot of movement, diving in and out. And sometimes it was a little bit deeper, and sometimes it was up on the surface again. They took me into a space that was underwater. It was a secret opening somewhere, like opening of the psyche, a dream, an opportunity of a discovery. It's an inward movement and an outward movement. It's the same time.
So I'd like you to tell me a story of some kind, and then I'm going to improvise a soundtrack to the story. How about the mythological story about the girl in the desert?
Ra is the sun god, and he was so furious because the people were absolutely respectless and not regarding any balance or order or any way of being together in a society. And he was so helpless and he didn't know how to bring the people back to reason and to be aware of what they are doing. The idea was to bring Sekhmet as a goddess down to the people, to bring some fear into this world. So Sekhmet came and was able to have this very deep encounter with that child in the desert and tell her this story that she actually went to ravage, like she was almost distincting the human being out of her rage and out of her ways. But then Hoti Thoth found a way to bring her back into a kind of a reason. And he advised to color the beer red so it feels and smells like blood. And they thrown gallons of beer around her, and she was lapping the beer, and then she went into sleep. And when she woke up, she has found or refound, I would say, her power of healing. And when the lioness was talking to this little Ima, because this little Ima was almost lost in the desert, so the lioness took little Ima as her cup. The lioness just brought in her lioness mothering. Goddess Sekhmet became one of the most eminent healers. The little Ima was actually listening because she understood that these paradoxes are actually one. She's the destroyer and the healer. She is the passionate mother lioness, and she can tear you into parts. She can eat your life. Like, it's all belong together. So this is actually her very first encounter with the holographic being.
I'm going to break it down into sections. So you've got this girl called Ima. She's in the desert and she's lost. And then she meets this lioness goddess.
Sekhmet appears in her chariot. She's a prowess, like she's a lot of power. Ima, either she thought this is a mirage. She's also fearless as a 5 years old girl.
I'll start with the desert and the girl, and then this encounter with the
Goddess,
Sekhmet.
right?
You can
Sekhmet.
call her Sekhmet.
And then she tells her this story, and then there's something about becoming powerful. And then there's this idea of these paradoxical parts coming together.
It's a surprise for you, Luke.
Surprise.
If you call me out and say, okay, come on my podcast, you have to be prepared. A disruptor, it's a rebel.
So I'm going to play some music now.
It's beautiful, Luke.
Thank you.
There was a lot of vastness in there. You could have gone more fierce into the fierce part because Sekhmet is very fierce. Like maybe you can try that again.
Okay, let's try the part where Sekhmet arrives again. Here we go.
A little bit better. When she gets fierce, then you can get this contrast between fierce and then the motherly. She's actually behaving to Iman like a cub.
So you felt that didn't quite come across the contrast between the fierceness and then the motherliness.
Try something there.
Okay, so take 3. Here we go.
Look, it's really interesting. Can you bring the sun in there? The desert and the vastness and the harshness of the sun would be also interesting. You have this blue sky and then this harsh desert, and the light is also very harsh.
I'm just going to play the desert then, if that makes sense. Play that atmosphere of incredibly sparse but mountainous and dry. Did that do anything for you?
It's lovely. Yeah, lovely.
It'd be quite good to take another one of these paradoxes that fit together, one that means something to you, and experiment musically with that.
Are you hungry for more?
Yeah.
You think that the cosmos and the universe and the multiverse is so far away. When Carl Sagan will say this little blue dot gives you that feeling of farness, that alienation. But in some way, that space is so deep inside of you. So you can venture out. Like me, I went to Madagascar, to Kazakhstan, to South Africa, to Japan, to California. Like I even had one day where we started on Joshua Tree in the morning and it was absolutely hot, 40 degrees or whatever. And then we were traveling and then suddenly the mountains came and then the snow came. So these contrasts are also inside of you. So you travel outside and you travel inside. This is the most intriguing, actually, aspect of my work. The farther you venture out, the farthest you can go is actually inside of you, venturing deeper and deeper inside of your imagination, into your ancestry, your lifelines, your experiences, failures, all of your gifts and talents and powers and dreams. That's also the holographic being, that you feel that you are encompassing the whole world, the whole multiverse. And it feels like you are very small, but you are so huge as a whole galaxy.
So I'm going to try and take this idea of this paradox of the more you travel outside, the more you travel inside in terms of understanding who you are as a person, as a being. I'm just going to take this idea and see what happens. What did you think of that?
Are you challenged by this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the holographic being is bringing all of these angles, these fractals, these aspects together into one piece of music, what you call disharmony, for example. When you bring it all together, you will be very surprised what the harmony is here, because it's like tuning forks. They will harmonize together. The holographic being is bringing the so-called disparate aspects together into one harmonious river. This is how I see it, because everybody will see it differently. You can't intellectualize it because it's not an intellectual concept. It's a living being. I'm living it. I'm living being an artist, a medicine woman, a mentor, but I'm living also being a child because I'm very childlike. I'm living to be the entrepreneur and the CEO, but I'm the dreamer. And so all of these aspects, when they come together, they craft that holographic being.
What did you get out of being on this podcast?
I actually played today, but in some ways it was also very interesting for me to listen to you, deeply listening. How are you moving inside of a challenge or an ignition or an inspiration? I have been moving with you inside of this as well. You work also a lot with coloring of the music. You're actually having a kinesthetic aspect as well in your music.
Thank you very much for being on the podcast.
You're welcome.
Join us next week for another episode of ImproPod. Thanks for listening. The ImproPod podcast is slowly becoming a global phenomenon, featuring guests from Barcelona to Lockhart, Texas, with stories and listeners from all over the planet, from Vanuatu to Chongqing. That's why I've made this interactive map, where you can listen to stories and explore their locations, find out approximately where the guests were interviewed and the listeners are. It's a completely new way to experience the ImproPod podcast. You can explore the map at impropod.com and on the Instagram page. Would you like to be a guest on this podcast? If you're into telling stories that inspire improvised music and exploring our relationship to music, then please get in touch. Email guest@impropod.com or send a message via the ImproPod Instagram page.